This Google Hangout is live. It is 11 p.m. on the west coast of the United States. It is 0600 GMT. cBas After Dark is back after a week of not having been on. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why. I was sort of sick last week in the early part of the week. Like the first couple of days, and I just was not feeling it. I was sort of actually asleep at this time a couple of those days. And then the last couple of days, and then my friend came. My good friend Kate was in town, and we got to go sort of hang out and have dinner and stuff. She took me for an early birthday dinner. Birthday's coming up in about 2 weeks. Oh God, it's going to be a rough one. But we'll talk about that later as well. But as Kate was in from out of town, she took me out for a birthday dinner. Any place I wanted, I chose the lovely Crab at Joe's Crab Shack. Divine. We'll talk about it on this coming, with weekend's upcoming fast food, junk food podcast, no doubt, with Sebastian and Sarabelle, which we also skipped this past weekend just because I was not feeling it. But a couple of the other nights when Kate wasn't coming to hang out with me, or I was just somehow not feeling well enough to do it, I think it was 2 of those nights that I skipped doing the show where I was just sort of, it got to be 11 o'clock and I was laying on the couch or I was watching something else and something else was going on and I just didn't feel like interrupting what I was doing. And hey, that's really the freedom of doing a show like this. Really the benefit of it is being able to say, yeah, fuck it. I mean, it's not like I have no viewers. I cannot say that I have no viewers and no one's going to miss me kind of a thing. I think most of the viewers are not live. Most of the viewers for this show actually come and see it on tape at some point in the next 12 hours to 2 weeks kind of a thing. But I do notice that most of the broadcasts I've done in one way or another seem to end up averaging between 18 and 36 views. At least, each of them has been up a different length of time. And so it's hard to kind of compare, say, the first week of shows with the most recent week of shows, which was 2 weeks ago. But that said, it's really good to be back. I really look forward to doing this show. There were times when I felt like, oh, let's just do it 3 days a week or something. But nah, I feel like, I see enough content and I have enough ideas that I really want to do this. And one of the things I started developing last week when I kind of decided I was taking the week off was a bunch of categories. I have them on my tablet here, but let me sort of share them with you on the cBas After Dark sort of set of files I've created. They kind of mimic the show I used to do on the radio. The green file, which is sort of stuff that's interesting about actual logical sustainable living or recycling, whatever you want to talk about, green living. I used to work for a station called Green 960. The station changed, but I felt after having done news of that type for a year or two, it was more than a year, that there's a place for that in legitimate news coverage. I mean, the climate change thing, is argued about still by some mostly idiots, I feel like, who argue about it. But they can argue it's actually happening, but they don't think that humans are actually the cause, whatever the hell. But all that kind of garbage aside, the stupid petulant argumentation aside, there's a lot of things that are interesting topics. Energy topics, right? Solar energy and nuclear energy, and there's all kinds of topics surrounding those two alone. Whether it's wind energy or any kind of sustainable power, I feel like that's interesting, and I think it's more than interesting. I think it's fascinating. Other things, education file. I'm going to be a teacher. That's important to me. The comedy file, right? Stuff in comedy, whether it's stand-up comics or, God forbid, Bill Cosby, but that'll be in the comedy file in a way because he was a comedian that ended up, having a mind-boggling fall from grace. And, so that's stuff that's interesting. Justice file, usually the injustice file, probably, right? Stuff that's not fair or not right. Police having their names being kept secret after a police shooting when, they're kind of public employees and paid by the public, they're public. What is the term I'm looking for? Public servant is the word I'm looking for, right? They're public servants, and I believe, I again, it's not like I feel one way or another about it right now because I don't have all the information, but I mean, I have cops that I know and love. On the other hand, I don't feel like you should be able to keep your name secret if you have to shoot, if you end up shooting someone. But there's an argument for it. We'll talk about that when we talk about that. Also, scanning license plates is the other thing in the justice file I want to talk about in the upcoming week. Scanning license plates is a thing that is actually being done in a lot of places, maybe not a lot of places, but quite a few places. And one of them is Oakland, California, the backyard of where I used to live, right across the water there. And the interesting thing about it is Ars Technica did a public records request and got back 4.6 million license plate scans. They know who people were as far as their license plate information, and they know like where they went and stuff, and that's pretty scary technology. You want to talk about that? Should be called like the Big Brother file or something like that. But it's specifically related to cops, law enforcement, justice, that kind of thing. So I'm going to put that in the justice file. Health file, whether it's medical news, whether it's bullshit like Ted Cruz signing up for Obamacare. Energy file, which is kind of overlapping with what I talked about, the green file. I guess green file will be more what composting and recycling shit. Energy file will be more like solar and wind energy shit. Transit file, something else I think is really interesting, whether it's plane crashes or train crashes or other related things. I feel like that's interesting. And then I have two files here, one of which I call the WTF file, which maybe we'll actually start with tonight, because I had a couple of good stories in there. Just those news stories that kind of come up as odd news or, really weird stories. If you're a viewer of Collective Today, one of the shows I used to do, you have seen me do stories in this realm before. And the hoax file, that's something else I'm fascinated by, is hoaxes. Internet hoaxes, whether it's a forwarded email you get, whether it is something that happens, in real sort of media life, I say real media life, like the Wendy's fingertip incident, which a lady found a fingertip in her Wendy's chili. It was an unmistakable human fingertip, and it was, except that she put it in there. And so Wendy's chili, I think to this day, has a bit of a sort of unfair stigma attached to it because of the fingertip hoax. And then the article I have here is actually the wiki hoaxes. Let's just start with this just because it's interesting to me. The 9 Wikipedia hoaxes, the 9 best hoaxes to have hit Wikipedia. Let's talk about it. And you know what, before I talk about it, and I will talk about it in just a moment here, I'm going to bring it up. But before I bring it up, I want to show you, I start the show, every single show, I start with a time check. Because even though most of the people who watch this don't watch it live, I feel like it's important to note when it is live. So people who want to participate, if you want to call the number, it's right there on the screen, on the phone, which is all the way over here. But yeah, you can call my phone at any point and I will put you on and we will talk about just about anything. Hopefully it'll be about what I'm already talking about, because otherwise that's kind of a pain. But I got to be concerned with when the daylight savings time change happened, like 2 weeks ago, whether or not I was saying the correct GMT time. So I did a Google search just before the show went on, and I found this great little tool. Let's share it with you so you can see what it is I'm looking at. It is called worldtimebuddy.com. And this is their GMT to PST converter. So you can literally see the hour that it is right now, Pacific Daylight Time, 11 p.m., 6 a.m. It's now actually 6:08 GMT. And I like this little sliding scaly thing that it does. You can actually see what each time is in Arizona, which does not do daylight savings, Pacific, which does, and then the GMT, which I don't know if it does or not. That's the part that I'm always confused about. I think it doesn't, but I thought it didn't before, and then it turned out like, I don't know, GMT might not do it, but Greenwich itself in England does. I forget what the hell it was, but it was really kind of bizarre. All right, let's switch over to the 9 best hoaxes to have hit Wikipedia. This is from internet.gawker.com. The 9 best hoaxes to have hit Wikipedia. Let's start with this one, which is Snappy and Friends, a short animated show sponsored by Rice Krispies, first aired in 1949. In 1968, a visionary toy scientist named Alex Cartwright created an artificially intelligent robotic arm that could play full games of Stratego, Battleship, and Candyland to the delight and vague unsettlement of its opponents. One of the defining rock bands of the hippie area. Okay, these are all this is the introduction from the folks at Gawker. This first one was a hoax published back in 2006 and was deleted from Wikipedia, 9 years later or something like that. No, not 9 years. What would that be? That would be like 7 years later. Olimar the Wonder Cat, a short-lived TV program made by the BBC in the 70s, supposedly, featuring a cat with magical powers. This was fabricated by a British clinical neurologist named Ed Wild as a tribute to his real-life cat, non-magical, also presumably named Olimar. He went on Twitter and admitted the ruse after the page was pulled down. To lend the article credibility, Wild seems to have invented a non-existent website called the When We Were Kids TV Archive, which then used that website as a source. Choice excerpt. Each of these hoaxes named here has a choice excerpt. And this one is, quote, despite Derek being voiced by Serge Gainsbourg, the French version was a flop and dropped after only 4 episodes, whatever. Despite its 7 years online, this article didn't break into the wider internet. One obscure cartoon-related website does place this show that never existed on a list of pre-80s TV shows, and it appears as an entry on freestreamingmovies.com. For some reason, they couldn't find a working stream. Well, the reason? Possibly because it never existed. The Boston College point shaving scandal. This would be related to basketball. I don't give a shit about basketball, but this is a hoax involving it. Therefore, I'm mildly interested. This was published in 2008, deleted just about 6 months ago or so. Boston College point shaving scandal is very real. ESPN produced a documentary, but Joe Streater, a real BC player whose name is frequently mentioned in connection with the fix, wasn't involved with it at all. In fact, he wasn't even on the team at the time. As Ben Koo conclusively documented on some blog last year, the widespread tarnishing of Streater's name can be traced to one inaccurate Wikipedia edit that was duplicated several times over by journalists who used Wikipedia as a source. I'm just going to bring it back to me for a second here, because I used to be a journalist, and that's all not quite rule number one. It's not like journalism 101, but it's certainly like day one of journalism 102 is don't use Wikipedia as a source. At the very most, use the sources that Wikipedia cites and go look them up your fucking self. As ways of, Wikipedia is a good place to get sources, but it is not a source into and of itself. Because very often, that's the thing, it's the encyclopedia. Anybody can change it, right? So that's sort of a really important thing to know in case anybody is thinking about being a journalist. If you want my advice on whether or not to be a journalist, my advice is run for your fucking life from the business and don't even. I suppose if you get a sick job with news.google.com or something like that, writing news, Yahoo News, one of those, maybe Politico, maybe Salon, stuff like that, maybe. Other than that, run for your fucking life because it's collapsing, whether it's newspapers, newspapers are collapsing. Radio is shrinking. TV is obviously a clusterfuck. Back to this point shaving scandal, though. Here we go. Outside Wikipedia, get this. Sports Illustrated, The Bleacher Report, and the AP have all published sports scandal roundups that mention this guy as a guilty party, and only Bleacher Report, as of March 20th, 9 days ago, has issued a correction. So, you wonder what harm are hoaxes. There's a guy who's being frequently named on actual news sites as related to a scandal that he had nothing to do with, apparently. That's really weird. Okay, Milton Bradley Playmate, the toy from the future. Published 2008, deleted again about 6 or 7 months ago. The Playmate article is unusually detailed and well written for a hoax, says this, which may explain how it was able to live so long despite a patently unbelievable premise. According to Wikipedia, the Playmate was a late 60s era concept toy that never made it to market, which would have allowed kids to play real-life Milton Bradley board games against an intelligent robot that used a claw arm to move pieces around. This is the choice excerpt. Due to the large servo motors required to operate the claw arm in the primitive state of computing, again, this is the late 60s, supposedly, where this was, they were unable to get the Playmate to an acceptable size and cost before Milton Bradley pulled the funding. The final version was around the size of a filing cabinet. It would have cost estimated $5,000 USD. Yeah, okay, it's obviously bullshit, but that's well written. The Playmate appears in a spammy machine-generated book called Entertainment Robots, which probably pulled its text straight from Wikipedia, and this sort of thing happens all the time. We will look at that article that links to later because that is interesting. The War That Wasn't, the Bilkolim conflict, published on Wikipedia 07, deleted in late 2012. The supposed 17th century war between Portugal and the Maratha Empire that led to the creation of Goa as an independent state within India is probably the most well-known hoax on Wikipedia. The Daily Dot chronicled the 4,500 word article story in 13, noting that the author had invented several books and their authors to flesh it out. Blah, 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 blah. But let's look at this most interesting section here. Outside Wikipedia, David D. Souza's fictional book is cited as a reference on at least one non-Wikipedia blog post, and Bill Colim itself was immortalized in a bot-generated book, just like the Milton Bradley paint. What are these bot-generated books? I'm not aware of this. Like, is that an ebook or is that like an actual book? Again, I'm not really quite sure what they mean by a bot-generated book. If you know, give me a call, 310-776-5869. That's 310-776-KUNZ. Or send me a tweet, Sebastian Kunz, at Sebastian Kunz. Kunz, like zebra. Okay. Some of these are more interesting than others. This next one is called Digital Lady, the psychedelic kitchen sink band, whatever. I mean, it's supposed San Francisco experimental rock band, published a 08, deleted middle of last year. A concert tracking website called Zup lists Digital Lady in its database of bands. Also, Ron Ziegler is linked to terms like Moog synthesizer and switched on Bach on some interactive infographic, whatever. Okay. Here's something I'd never heard of. Some of these I'd heard of, some of them I didn't for various reasons. Crocodile Shears, the unbelievably brutal penis torture gear. Written in 06, deleted 6-ish years later. A medieval torture device that was supposedly used on the penises of men who attempted to assassinate a king. The shears, spiked blades, were to be superheated before use. And there's a note here, the phrase crocodile shears does have a real-world connotation, but it has nothing to do with torture or penises. Outside Wikipedia, crocodile shears regularly turn up on lists and discussions of gruesome, horrifying, and twisted torture devices, including Viral Nova, Listverse, AskMen, Urban Dictionary. They're found in several books with real human authors, including Dictionary of Torture and Alex Preston's In Love and War, which The Guardian called profoundly moving. Okay, whatever. The imaginary martyr, Saint Ophelia of Denmark, said to be a Roman Catholic martyr. It's hard to find a reference to her in any source that doesn't seem to be getting its information from the Wikipedia article. Her name day is February 3rd, so it's just about 2 months ago. References to the imaginary martyr are found mostly on baby naming websites. We can only hope some child somewhere has been named after Saint Ophelia, the imaginary martyr. She's also in a spam book about Danish people. Again, spam book, is that the same thing as a bot-written book? And what the fuck is it? Like, I mean, just for shits and giggles, let's click that and just, see what it says. A spam book. Okay. Please note that this book consists primarily of articles available from Wikipedia or other free sources online. So is that what's being done now? I mean, do people get paid because they have a computer assemble a bunch of articles? It doesn't look like that. There's a cost associated with that. It says no ebook available over here, but you can get a print book. Whatever. I mean, again, I'm unfamiliar with that, but it's not important necessarily right now. The made-up maid that inspired Amelia Bedelia. I do remember Amelia Bedelia, which was like a children's book or series of books. This is supposedly a made-up maid that inspired that story. The titular character is based on a maid in Cameroon. A Daily Dot writer, E.J. Dickinson, admitted last year she'd made the edit of the Wikipedia article with a friend in college while they were stoned out of their minds. The intention of seeing how fast it would get taken down, it stayed up for 5 years. Okay, this one outside Wikipedia was in a book about Jews and Jesus Christ. A blogger used the fictional anecdote to make a labored point about slavery. Herman Parrish, who picked up writing the Bedelia books after the death of his aunt, once told a reporter that Peggy based the lead character on a French colonial maid in Cameroon. But I guess this guy, the nephew or whatever of the person who originally wrote those books, read Wikipedia or looked it up and found that that's where it apparently came from when it really didn't. Slow Blind Driveway, the inauthentic bluesman. An imaginary old guitarist. Okay, whatever. I'm less interested in this one. It stayed up for 3 years. I think it's the last one. This Day in Blues History blog commemorates April 19th as the day that the Slow Blind Driveway died. The folk singer occasionally performs under the name Slow Blind Driveway, although that joke appears to be unconnected to the Wikipedia hoax. Go figure that, or somehow this same phrase has found its way independently into two different areas of the world, neither of which I give a shit about. Okay, moving on. We'll talk more about hoaxes. I think hoaxes are a really interesting thing because, you know, everything. You ever get one of those forwarded emails? The first thing you should do, of course, is go to Snopes.com and see if it's bullshit or not. I think there's other sites devoted to it as well, but I feel like Snopes is kind of the gold standard as far as debunking hoaxes, from certainly forward email hoaxes, kind of a thing. But they do they have a great list. I mean, Snopes ought to, like, I wish I could get them to sponsor the hoax segment of this show whenever I do it irregularly. How this was going to go, just so I've sort of talked about this real fast, this new sort of format or whatever, like I'm going to try and do it kind of consistently week after week. So if you like game shows, you know to tune in on Tuesday. If you like nerd news, you know to tune in on Monday, kind of a thing. Again, part of the appeal of doing the show for me is that there is no sort of set agenda. I can do whatever the fuck I feel like, whether, you know, it's related to something I'm doing in my real life, or, you know, just kind of doing the news, or just playing, you know, clips off of YouTube game shows and shit. Like, the freedom is one of the things I like about it. So I may or may not stick to it like a Nazi, but I mean, I feel like having a little bit more structure to it's probably a little bit better as far as, archiving it and indexing it later, for one thing, but also just sort of being able to, like, tune in as a viewer and figure out what the hell you want. If you don't give a shit about green shit, you know not to tune in on Wednesday, whatever. I don't really have days picked out yet, except Nerd News Monday and Game Show Tuesday. I'm kind of already doing. Let's see. That was the hoax file. Let's go to the WTF file. I had a couple of stories from the WTF file that, I mean, Lord only knows if they're going to be, you know, supreme hits, but this is actually a pretty good story, whether or not man confessed to shooting his son during an argument over lack of orange juice. You know, you just got to appreciate a headline like that. Hopefully it's not a hoax, but let's switch to it here and you can read it along with me. The story comes from KSAZ, Fox 10 Phoenix. Now, those people who, you know, just sort of generically throw out Fox News sort of have, that there's a problem in doing that. I've talked about that before. The local stations very often are regular, good local news stations. And in fact, this story, while it's posted on fox10phoenix.com, comes from, yes, the Associated Press. So, oh dear Lord, what happened? Go back. No advertisement, please. But this is an AP story, so it's not going to be slanted in the Fox way, even if you're worried about the local stations of Fox being like that. Police in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, this is about a week ago now, say a man is facing a charge of attempted manslaughter after he confessed to shooting his son, his 18-year-old son, during an argument over orange juice. Police tell the Advocate newspaper 58-year-old Eldridge Dukes and his son were fighting Sunday morning about the lack of orange juice. The squabble escalated when the victim broke a vase, if you will, and Dukes grabbed his handgun. They say Dukes chased the victim out of the house and down the street, firing at least 3 times. Police say the son was hit in the butt, suffered non-life-threatening injuries. Dukes was booked into the parish prison on accounts of attempted manslaughter and illegal use of a dangerous weapon. Jail officials could not provide the name of a defense attorney. The parish prison, that makes me always think it's like a church. It's not. The parish prison thing is actually like what they call counties in some areas, like Louisiana, I feel like. Excuse me. I don't think they refer to them as counties so much as parishes in certain, like the southern states. I'm not really an expert on that, but I feel like that, in stories I've covered before from such and such township or such and such parish, that's kind of how it's done in some states, other than states where I've lived. All of the states where I've lived, which basically is Arizona, Kansas, and California, do it in the kind of the traditional county city way. I feel very comfortable in a state that did it that other way. I don't know. I feel like if you're really sort of attaching your whole existence to, what am I trying to say? I feel like it's too attached to the church for my comfort. Let's look at this other WTF story from the WTF file. Again, consider the source. I don't know anything about first2know.com. It's not. Oh my Lord! Somebody's calling in. Call from 808. Teen caught making love to stuffed horse in Walmart. Hello. Yes. That's very. Oh my God. Hey, what's up? Who's this? I'm gonna have to guess. How am I supposed to guess? It's Joe, as in my friend Joe in the far state of Hawaii. Oh my God! Can I put you on the air on speakerphone, or you have something for me? Okay. Yes. Tell me. Talk about parishes. Cool Hand Luke. That's a movie. It takes place in a parish prison. Okay. I have seen it like a million years ago. I know one thing about Cool Hand Luke. Let me switch the camera back to me because I kind of forgot to do that. Cool Hand Luke. I know only one thing about it. I know it's like related to boxing. You say it takes place in a parish prison, like in a southern state. It's about escaping from the prison. And I know one thing, and it's completely ridiculous, the one thing I know about Cool Hand Luke, and it is the following. The music from that movie went on to become very famous local news theme. That dun 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 dun. It went on to be possibly the most recognized local theme music for local news broadcasts of any of the other, there's a couple of kind of clusters of them. And of all of them, that one that came from Cool Hand Luke was like the eyewitness news theme. And there's been a million variations of it now because something about it is very dramatic and it has kind of the drum beat that suggests itself to it. And that's so what state does that movie take place in that it's a parish prison? Is it in a southern state? Was I right about that? Okay. Oh, yes. The Internet Movie Database.
The Dodge brothers made their own bicycle.
Okay, but it's in a parish prison, and that what that is basically a county prison, right? It's essentially the same thing. Okay, because I'm not exactly sure I knew about that. Well, thank you. You cleared that up for me, dude. I totally appreciate it. And by the way, frankly, I don't get that many calls, so it's a real treat to have somebody see them, to just call in. I guess you had my number before the thing here, but it's nice to hear from you anyway. How the heck is everything else over there in the island state? Okay. I read something about a blizzard. Are you still under snow, or is that all over with, or was that not your island, or? You do get blizzards. Ah, God bless the climate change. Or is that not part of climate change? Is that like a normal occasional occurrence? It could be, because I feel like that one of the arguments was global warming. Okay, well, we had a bunch of winter storms this year, so the anti-global warming people are all, aha, global cooling. And it's like, well, actually, it's kind of about the change of the climate and more extreme weather rather than like more hot or more cold. Yeah, and I mean, whether you're talking about the drought in California or the winter storms that walloped everybody in Canada and the New England area of the U.S., like, I still don't understand why people would live there, and I like to laugh at my Canadian and New England friends for sort of living in a place that would have 6 months of pure blizzard mania. But really, you're the one who always shuts me up when I say Arizona's not that bad, because Hawaii is like the ultimate fucking paradise. Yeah, well, of course. And I mean, I mean, most people probably wish they could live there and feel like you're probably super lucky. But I mean, you're not. I guess I'm not telling secrets out of school, but like you're not Mr. Rich Moneybags. You live on a very sort of relatively low, like sort of cost of living. It's not super expensive to live there, or is it, like, to buy food? You make a living. Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I mean, as soon as I can get the teacher certification and sort of my American credentials for being a teacher in this country, I'm certainly going to investigate places that are a little bit more paradise-like, kind of like where you are.
It's 11:30.
What kind of teachers? That's the thing is, I mean, I'm sort of at this early stage where I could probably guide it or direct it a certain way if I knew. And I feel like that's going to mean like which teachers are most needed and going to be most like sort of like in demand. And I'm like, is that going to be computer science? Is that going to be app development? Like, what is it going to? Just basics like math, science, English, that kind of shit? Uh-huh. Okay. Well, fortunately, I've been an English teacher for a year. I mean, it was not. I mean, I've been an honest to God English teacher for a year. Now, when you're an adult ESL English teacher, a lot of people think of that differently than, I mean, my teaching expertise that first year was literally just being a native speaker of English, and the fact that I was a writer and editor and radio guy for all those years kind of was icing on the cake. As far as students who only speak Spanish understanding you and that kind of thing, like it helped my voice and my kind of clear speaking way helped, I guess. But like I did not have a teaching credential when I was a teacher then. I just kind of took their special training, and they were so desperate for teachers at this place where I taught that they kind of threw me to the wolves right after that was over. Anyway, well, good advice and good information as well. I'm glad you called, man. Take care of yourself. Let's see here. I had something I was working on and thinking about you earlier tonight, but I got wrapped up in the Wrestlemania pay-per-view, which was tonight. But that was, I'm working on a promo for you as far as the channel. I already showed you that first draft that I am not in love with, but that's getting better as well. So when I get a second draft of it here, I'll advise you instantaneously in the secret Trekkie chat room, which I talk about a lot on this show, but I never say anything else more than the Trekkie chat room. I like suggesting it without really referencing it directly, All right, man. Good to hear from you. I'll talk to you soon, okay? Good night. The great Joe calling all the way from Hawaii, where I did not ask him what time it is, but if I do the little calculator here, I guess I could have just asked him, but let's see here. Can you just, let's say Hawaii in place or time zone? Hawaii. I think there's only one time zone for the state of Hawaii, but I could be wrong there too. It's many hours different from, it's minus 10 GMT. So it's 0632 GMT right now, 11:32 Pacific and 8:32 p.m. in Honolulu, which is obviously paradise, as we all know. The story I was going to talk about right when Joe called and we got to talking was this other kind of WTF story, and it is about a teen who was caught. Again, consider the source. I don't know if this is necessarily a good website to get a story from, but I believe it references a better place, The Smoking Gun. That's slightly better, but let's just stick with this. I mean, I guess I should actually really, honest to God, click on that just to make sure it's not sort of misrepresented. But I don't know how you misrepresent this. Floridian, 19, arrested for lewd act with stuffed animal inside Walmart store. And there's the guy. He's 19. I guess we can call him a boy. Now, this is not super new. That says 10/16. Is that from last October for real? Yeah, October 2014. So this is not a new story. It caught my attention recently this week. A Florida man took a stuffed animal off a Walmart shelf and used the toy to masturbate before returning the ejaculate-covered article to a storage shelf. Okay, I tried not to be overly gross. And I know I'm a homo, so like certain things are supposed to be like blot with me, but I mean, that's gross as hell, dude. It occurred around some afternoon at a Walmart in Brooksville, north of Tampa. Police report says 19-year-old Sean Johnson selected a brown, tan, and red stuffed horse from the clearance shelf. Oh, okay. I don't know why that detail amuses me, but yeah, it's not even the full price toy shelf at Walmart. This is from the clearance shelf in the garden department in Walmart. So, I mean, okay, again, the specificness of that is very amusing to me. Clearance shelf in the gardening department at your local Walmart has apparently really cheap stuffed toys. He didn't pay for it. He took it, used it, and put it back. Specifics here, he then went to the comforter aisle in the housewares section. So the bed section where there's whatever. I'm always unclear on whether people who get caught like this are doing it standing up or lying down. Like, I don't want to talk about too much personally, but let's just say I don't know if I could do that standing up. He went to the comforter aisle in the housewares section, proceeded to pull out his genitals, and then proceeded, let me get the quote on the screen just so you can see it for yourself. No, I'm not making this up. Proceeded to hump the stuffed horse utilizing short, fast movements. Okay, too much information. Of course, it was caught on surveillance cameras. After Johnson achieved an orgasm and ejaculated on the stuffed horse's chest area, again with the specifics, this is so specific, he placed the soiled stuffed horse on top of a bed in a bag, contaminating the comforter of the bag also. While Johnson fled the store, before he could be apprehended, he was subsequently arrested by Brooksville PD officers. In a written statement, Johnson admitted that I did unmentionables to a stuffed animal. Noting that he committed a horrible act, Johnson added, I need to think before what I do. I'm extremely sorry. Johnson, seen in the mugshot, was charged with indecent exposure, criminal mischief, booked into jail, and then released after posting $1,500 bond. God, I mean, I'm not a furry. I believe this qualifies him to be in the category of furry. Those people who, let's talk about fetishes for a second. I mean, there's people with lots of fetishes, whether it's people who like, wearing women's underwear. Now, transvestism, just wearing women's clothes, is not necessarily a sexual fetish. Although I think the thrill is similar. I mean, many of the clothes dresser, cross dressers, for instance, I think don't get off from it. Maybe they do. I know it's not necessarily related to being gay. That's the thing I know for sure, is that for all intents and purposes, a surprising number of people who cross-dress, men who like to wear women's clothing in one way or another, aren't gay. They just get a thrill from wearing the clothes. So maybe it is the sexual thrill. Maybe that is a fetish. There's the ones who are into, the obvious kind of fetishes like the leather and, the kind of BDSM kind of thing. And then there's the ones that are the furries, right? Who kind of, for one reason or another, like to rub themselves with something soft and furry. And the conventions of this type that I have seen have always been people dressed in those big animal costumes. That's the thing. And that's what I don't get, because I've never worn one of those costumes and I've never participated in anything like that. I really am completely foreign to it, but I don't believe those costumes are soft on the inside the way they are on the outside. Like, I always was sure that, anytime I've ever seen something that's furry and fluffy and really like a stuffed animal or something, if you've ever felt the inside of that same kind of patch of fabric, it's usually quite rough in my experience. Like, I never quite combined how those suits, I mean, this is literally how confusing it is for me. I really don't wrap my head around it. And Ellen DeGeneres said it best. She's like, sexual sort of proclivities and fantasies and fetishes and stuff are the one thing that separates us, because no matter how natural it seems to you, it's like religion. Yours is completely natural to you, but everybody else's is fucking weird. And I think my old roommate Dave, the great Dave Krieger, once actually said that it's kind of like religion and fetishism, is that yours is very normal. In fact, unthinkable to live without. That's how sort of ingrained those things become. And yet to think of somebody else's is like completely weird. And I never really, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm kind of relatively normal when it comes to that stuff too. I mean, yeah, I like good looking guys. I mentioned WWE briefly when I was on the phone with Joe. I will say this about WWE. The WrestleMania was tonight. Now, I don't want to go off of my usual WWE fetish. I hate sports. I love pro wrestling. The reasoning there, I think, is pretty clear, even though people who are into sports always hate it that I say this. To me, I'm quite sure that these professional sports of the regular, honest-to-God professional type, NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, hockey, baseball, basketball, football, those kind of things. I'm convinced in my mind that on one level or another, they're just as fake as professional wrestling. Now, most people hate it. And I'm unclear necessarily as to what level it is. I could straight up say that I believe, and in some certain, you catch me on the right day, and I will say that I do believe that NBA games, and it's fixed for the purpose of kind of maximizing profit and maximizing interest and maximizing ticket sales and ticket prices and so forth, to the point where we're now literally not just paying enormous amounts to watch a fucking bunch of overpaid, roided out guys who would hate you if they knew you win some game that you know, and then you go, we win, and you had nothing to do with it. And that gives you a mental masturbatory thing. Whatever. The fakeness of pro wrestling is sort of, I mean, kind of a widely known, winked at secret, except that it's not fake. I mean, it's not like it is a, how am I trying to say this? Are the outcomes predetermined? Absolutely. Is it produced for maximum entertainment ability and maximum extremeness and maximum viewer entertainment? Absolutely. But are the guys faking I mean, this is sort of a coordinated, pre-produced stunt show. Large men using ladders, and there's blood, and it's very often very real blood. It's also, there's a million tricks that they use to use fake blood as well. I'm not saying it's 100% real, by far not. But to say that it's fake, I think, is a little bit misleading. It's pre-produced, but I think it's just as, I feel like it's more honest of them to kind of do that wink, wink. It's like, it's a comic book essentially, right? Where, it's not to come at it from the perspective that it should be real, and why isn't it real, and blah blah blah, is a mistake for a number of reasons. One, I don't think those professional sports of the other types I mentioned are necessarily legit or real. Whether you want to talk about ball inflation, whether you want to talk about officiating, whether you want to talk about any of the other bullshit that makes sports real versus fake, I feel like as far as maximum entertainment bang for your buck, you're not going to do better than the WWE. And Wrestlemania does not disappoint every year. It is also true this year, by the way. It was a really good Wrestlemania. I thought of a couple of things, and my geek friends, both in the Trekkie chat and my sort of wrestling friends, my good buddy Hunter that I always talk to about this stuff, was very amused when I said the final match was a guy, I forget the name of I had it up here. What was the name of the guy that Brock Lesnar fought against? Oh, it's going to escape me. Roman something. Roman Reigns is his name. Reigns. Okay, Roman Reigns. The name is too pretty. He himself is super pretty. Like, he's too pretty to beat Brock Lesnar. The line that made everybody laugh was the following. Brock Lesnar, this long-time wrestler, he's been around for many, many years. I think he came from like UFC, or I don't know. He might be one of the ones that actually like was in the NFL or something before he went on to be a pro wrestler. But Brock Lesnar looks like the creature before Homo sapiens on that chart where apes evolve into humans. I always, my buddy Hunter got a real kick out of that. He's like, that was really funny. So I thought I'd bring it to you. Yes, Brock Lesnar looks like the Australopithecus, my friend Kayak said. I think it's actually troglodyte or one of those caveman precursors to Homo sapiens. But yeah, Brock Lesnar is not Homo sapiens, and he's got the kind of the low forehead and the kind of weird haircut and kind of beady eyes and everything. And I feel like blah blah blah. So he was kind of the favorite to win. Some weird twist involving a suitcase full of money had this third guy come in, and frankly, I've always wrestled with, being a pro wrestling fan, I've wrestled, pardon that turn of phrase, I totally said that unintentionally. I didn't mean to say that I'm wrestling with this issue, although I do, which is being attracted to a wrestler and wanting them to win, or thinking that they can win. Because this one Roman Reigns guy is sexy as hell. He's got piercing blue eyes, and he's damn good looking. He's got really long, beautiful hair, and a really kind of sexy, almost kind of gay alliterative name. Roman Reigns. Oh, pardon me. Well, I always picture Paul Lynde like saying, "Oh, Roman Reigns," kind of the thing. His name's too. There's far too much about him that was pretty enough, like too kind of tough. He's not tough enough. He's too pretty to have won. But this third guy kind of came in and sort of knocked out whoever he knocked out, and ended up defeating Brock Lesnar for the championship title of the blah, blah, blah. A couple of things I noticed. One, it was in San Francisco Bay Area. Actually, right in my old backyard. Like it was so close to where my original house in the Bay Area was, and then it was, you know, is spitting distance to the house where I lived later in Sunnyvale for a number of years. Just, I mean, I adore everything about the Bay Area, except for the rent. The rent is absolutely obscene, to the point where if you don't work for Google and make 7 figures a year, you're not going to be able to afford to certainly live in the city. You're probably not going to be able to afford to live in the suburbs either, without, you know, several roommates and a damn good, you know, mortgage or lease agreement, whatever the hell. But the weather looked really nice. It just made me homesick as hell to watch this special. The weather was gorgeous. They have this font, Wrestlemania, kind of. It's not a font on the screen. These are physical letters that they build as part of the set, WREST. But it's in this kind of Star Trek: The Next Generation font. And they're like physical metal letters that are lit from within, probably with LEDs, so they can change the color, whatever they want. And it's not the traditional WrestleMania font logo either. That was the other thing I noted, was the kind of the traditional WrestleMania logo goes back to the days of the original WWF logo, which, if you know anything about kind of the sequence of that, the WWF, the World Wrestling Federation, got in trouble with the Panda people, the World Wildlife Fund, and they made them change their name because World Wildlife Fund had WWF first. The Panda had it first. So ultimately, the wrestling folks had to go ahead and change their moniker, and they did it pretty smartly. They made it from the WWF to the WWE, and then they just kind of dropped they redid the logo, if I remember right, and then they had to change it. But fortunately, all they had to do was change the F to an E, and then ultimately they just made it 2 concentric W's as their logo, which I think was pretty smart. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. I could talk about wrestling all damn night, but I mean, there's millions of places doing that, and I'm trying to be different and interesting to a broader audience. So that's all I will say about that. Let's find other stories of people masturbating with letters. No. But I did sort of want to talk, what was the other thing I wanted to say? Oh, yeah. This guy who masturbated with the horse in the Walmart in, where was it? Tampa. It was in Florida, north of Tampa by 50 miles. I did unmentionables to a stuffed animal. He committed a horrible act. I mean, public indecency is not good. It's not like he killed someone. It's not like he raped someone. It's not like he even exposed himself to another human being. So the only crime he did was, you know, not buying the horse and just taking it home and doing it there. It was on clearance, for God's sakes. Why couldn't you just buy it? That's really what he should have been charged with, was just cheapness and or stupidity. But I feel like a horrible act. I mean, he's throwing himself on the mercy of everyone in the world, trying to get, you know, as light a sentence. But the other thing I wanted to note was, holy shit, $1,500 bond. I guess what? Do you get that back or a part of that back if you do show up for your court date, kind of a thing? I mean, booked to the jail, a picture and name on the news, on the internet. I mean, it's not like it just happened last night. But either way, in fact, and this is kind of a testament to, good Lord, I mean, he's going to be on the internet forever. He's going to be known as the the little brown stuffed horse masturbator. I wonder if he'll ever escape that. Like that is another thing I'm fascinated by, sort of, is, you know, having a past that you can't escape. Redemption is kind of something that I've always kind of toyed with and been amused by. I'm not always the most compassionate person, and sometimes to faults. Like, I'm sometimes really quite mean in my sort of, I don't want to say intolerant. I don't even want to say mean. I feel like when I am mean, it is to people who deserve it and have it coming, for the most part. That's, of course, relative. But I mean, I don't know. I feel very much compassion for this kid, more than anger or grossness. I mean, it's gross, yeah. I don't understand the fetish, yeah. But I mean, at the same time, horrible act. There's a lot of horrible acts out there, and I'm not sure he really did that. But hopefully, he's able to sort of make something of his life. I mean, think about that for a second. What kind of a job? I mean, garbage man, construction worker. I'm trying to think of jobs. I'm having trouble sort of finding. I'm going to be going down the teacher route, so that's kind of where it's all settling, and it makes sense to do that. And I'm proud and happy to be able to do it, and I feel like I'll be able to help people. But there are many jobs, many jobs where you have to sort of disclose stuff like that, right? And even if you don't have to disclose it, or even if you disclose it to a certain degree and it doesn't affect your thing on paper, like you're still on the internet known as that guy. I don't know what about this I'm sort of fixating on specifically, except that I feel bad for the kid because it wasn't that bad. You know, there are rapists who may not be as famous as that guy, you know, whether it's a frat kind of guy, rapists and racists and all kinds of people who are real assholes and probably deserve to have it follow them around for a number of years to teach them a real fucking lesson that they really needed to learn, you know, earlier and didn't. I'm not sure this kid needed to be taught a lesson other than keep it in your pants until you're home with the door closed. Like, I mean, that's an important lesson. But again, he didn't even pull his genitals out in front of other people. This article, anyway, it sounded like he was caught on camera and that was it. Like, no, he didn't get seen by anyone. There wasn't kids who were scarred for life by seeing this, or women, or, you know, men, or, I mean, anybody would be probably a little bit troubled to see that, but I don't feel like it was all that bad. It was what we call a WTF story, though, and that's the kind of thing you will see right here on cBass After Dark. I don't know what else to talk about. I got 10 minutes to go, theoretically. If I wanted to, I don't know why I'm also so enamored with making it an hour show. It's interesting that I sort of work hard to collect things to talk about and organize the stuff so that it's kind of done by day and stuff like that. But, you know, I could easily make it a 45-minute show if I wanted, a 15-minute show if I wanted. Why I feel a need to go for an hour, it's, I guess, traditional. I feel like making it an hour is a little bit more like making it a TV show proper, as opposed to just some blog pod video cast on fucking YouTube, which, let's face it, there are a dime a dozen. I've talked about this before, too, and I feel strongly about it. Everybody, when I stopped being on the radio, said to me, cBass, do a podcast, as though it were an original suggestion, as though it were the most brilliant suggestion, as though A, I wouldn't have thought of it before, B, no one else had suggested it to me, and C, like there weren't a million other fucking people doing it. That's the part that bothered me, was that, you know, to be a broadcaster, an FCaster, is sort of something special in a way. And to be a webcaster, you know, I like, on one hand, the democracy of the internet, kind of everybody's voice gets heard no matter how fucking crazy they are. On the other hand, I'm a fan of credentials, and I feel like there are some voices who should not be heard as loud as they are. Crazy people and annoying people, you know, annoying people have a right to be heard, I suppose, but there are certain idiots like 9/11 conspiracy theorists who don't deserve to be heard. Flat Earth people do not need to be consulted every time I do a science story that involves something about the Earth being spherical. Like, I seriously believe strongly that certain people need to be ignored and have too much of a voice on the internet. I'm not saying they should be legislated or, you know, killed or removed or anything, but I feel like, you know, on one hand, I like the even playing fieldness of it. On the other hand, it's a dime a dozen or worse. Like, I mean, it's actually a dime free. Who the hell do you know? That was what I started to say, was everybody's like, do a podcast, as though it's this great idea. And then what I started doing after I heard that, and more than a couple of times, because I heard it over and over and over and over, what podcast do you listen to? And instantly, I want to say all of them. I think there were 2 people who asked before I started, who said that before I started asking the question back. And then like a good 8 people said it to me, and I went instantly, I'm like, what podcast do you listen to? And they all downshifted and backed away and were like, well, you know, I'm kind of busy, and well, you know, no. And nobody had a podcast they listened to. And I'm like, isn't that telling? Isn't that fucking fascinating that these people are like, oh, do a podcast. That'll be good for you, blah, blah, blah. Now, my friend on the Trekkie chat room, he goes by Nullist. He was the one who kind of gave me this term that I've hung my hat on as far as doing this show, and that is keeping your chops up. In other words, I'm kind of doing this not because it will get me noticed, not because it will necessarily entertain people, just so that it's giving me a little more structure in this otherwise very kind of humdrum, kind of normal, less broadcasty, more normal life that I'm going to be kind of shifting into. And, you know, just keeping yourself practiced. And I believe that holding to my traditional things of, you know, doing an hour show, starting at the top of the hour and ending at the top of the next hour. Like, I feel like that's important in stupid ways, but I feel like it's, you know, traditional, and that's really all I'm going to say. I don't know how I'm going to fill 5 more goddamn minutes, but let's see. I could actually click on one of these other weird news stories here because there are good ones. Let's look at Idaho man 52 arrested for battering female victim with a burrito. This also from the same website where I had been a second ago. The website is The Smoking Gun. And the man is 52. Another burrito assault. Oh, look at this guy. Talk about redemption. This guy needs to be redeemed from being known as the burrito assaulter. Travis Micho, 52, tossed the burrito during a dispute with Clarissa Tharp. According to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, again, where is the, yes, Idaho. Micho, deputies reported, grabbed his burrito from his dinner plate and threw it at Tharp as she was standing across the table from him. This happened in an assisted living community. The guy, Tharp, the victim, 40, works there, was struck with several pieces of the burrito. The guy, 52, is he a resident? Is he a worker? Micho copped to throwing the burrito at Tharp. He was arrested on a misdemeanor battery charge, booked into the county jail, from which he was released after posting $600 bond. He has been arrested 17 times since 1991. His rap sheet includes multiple DUIs, weapons, narcotics, battery, probation violation charges. And then I like this last line. Stories about prior burrito attacks can be found here and here. Oh, please, let's go ahead and click that first one. Just for, as we say, shits and giggles. Ooh, Taco Bell burrito at the heart of this assault. And then back to Florida for this. Eric Brown, 36, smashed a 16-year-old boy in the face with a burrito during a February 2013 domestic dispute at a Port St. Lucie residence. Oh, it happened at a residence. The cops said he was having a verbal altercation with his mother and Brown, his brother-in-law, when his mother asked him to bring him the burrito. I'm sorry, when Brown asked his mother to bring him the burrito. Brown then allegedly threw the burrito with force at the victim, striking the boy in the face with the item. While interviewing the teen, cops noted he had burrito cheese, sauce, and meat all over his clothing and face. Well, that could have just been a really good burrito that he ate. He told police that the victim was disrespectful to his mother, had cursed at the woman. He also acknowledged he had delivered the burrito. That's the part. Bring me the burrito so I can throw it at this kid. He was going to take care of the teen, blah, blah, blah. And let's go back to the previous story because there was that second one. We'll finish with that. Burritos can be found here and here. Okay. Armed with a deadly burrito. South Carolina. Teenager facing a felony charge for throwing a deadly missile at a moving vehicle. The armament in question was a burrito. According to the Hernando County, South Carolina Sheriff's Office report, the 15-year-old, a passenger in a Dodge, allegedly threw the burrito Saturday afternoon at a Honda from John Addy, owned by John Addy, as the cars traveled alongside each other. Cops discovered burrito remnants inside and outside the vehicle, as well as on Addy, who was not injured when struck. After tracing the license plate, cops confronted the teenager, who admitted throwing the burrito as a prank. So this seems to be literally like an unmotivated, like this was just a prank. He claimed no other object was thrown, although the cops concluded there was evidence a hard object caused damage. Booked into jail, later released into his father's custody. That's the part. I mean, I guess teenagers don't think about throwing burritos, but like the masturbating guy with the horse, the amount of money that costs, just, I mean, forget the sort of lifelong ridicule, forget the, having it be on the internet, forget the job fallout, all of that stuff. Put that aside. The money alone, you got to come up with $1,500 because you masturbated on a horse at a Walmart. That's just like, oh God. I don't even know. That is really sad. All right, I'll wrap this up. This is cBas After Dark. Thank you for watching. If you have watched live, I'm here every night, Sunday through Thursday, essentially, 11 p.m. on the west coast of the U.S., 6 a.m. if you're in the GMT time zone. I just throw GMT in there because it's a way of sort of telling where you are around the world, what time it is. And that's when I'm live. That's when you can call in. Otherwise, at Sebastian Kuntz, SEBASTIANKUNZ, like zebra. And you can just tweet me. You can Instagram me, although I'm not on Instagram, so that won't get it. And if you leave me a voicemail message at the number here, it will be sent into a voicemail box, or it will not be listened to anyone. It will be automatically deleted. Join me 23 hours from right now for more. We'll do Nerd News Monday. Technology stories. Let's look at the stories just before I go. Let's pre-sell the stories in the Nerd News because I had like 5 or 6 of them. Google Fiber and the things that go with it. AT&T is got a fiber, like high speed broadband kind of thing, high bandwidth, whatever. Google Fiber is going to be in its 8th market. AT&T is going to have something, but if you want the fastest speed, you have to opt into their their program where they see everything you search for and then send you directed ads based on that. And if you don't want that, if you want to opt out, it's going to cost you an arm and a fucking leg. Also, the privacy file, they're going to try and repeal the Patriot Act, paying to watch YouTube star videos before everybody else gets to see them. Would you do that? There's a lot of good stuff in the Nerd News. We will do that 23 hours from now. As for now, make it a great Monday. I'm Sebastian. This is cBas After Dark. Good night.